Hi everyone, welcome to a Sunny Book Nook. My name is Sunny, and today I'm going to be talking about some of the anti-Zionist, non-Palestinian authors that you should support, because there are some Zionist authors that I have supported in the past that I will no longer be supporting. So actually, I found out about this today because someone tweeted about how Taylor Jenkins Reid is a Zionist in what she has been posting. I'll insert a screenshot, I guess, of what she has said. I think right now in the book community, people have commented on my videos about this because I have obviously been very vocal about my support for Palestine and Palestinian liberation and my anti-Zionism, and I've been very fervently anti-Zionist for many years now and vocal about it. And it's been very disheartening seeing a lot of the book community online be really quiet about the genocide that's happening in Gaza right now and not using the platforms or speaking up about it, and people whose whole careers are dedicated to writing about people's lives and resistance. And it's just really disheartening to see how they have no care, it seems, for their colleagues and fellow writers who are being massacred right now. And it's just really astonishing to witness. So I just wanted to talk about that because obviously Taylor Jenkins Reid is a super popular author, but I also wanted to spotlight the fact that a few weeks ago I noticed that based off of this author that I thought I had a pretty okay relationship with, because we were mutuals on Twitter before my Twitter got nuked into oblivion and now I'm not allowed to make a new account ever, and whom I was mutuals with on Instagram and stuff, and she commented on one of my book reviews early in 2020, so really at the beginning of my channel, and I noticed that she just was silent about Palestine and talking about sort of Jewish victimization within the circumstances right now, which I think is, look, I don't want to minimize anti-Semitism in any way because it's a very real issue and it has been for millennia. It's for a millennium at this point. Anti-Semitism is a really crucial starting point for European colonialism and racism because it was a foundational element of it. And I also don't want to discount sort of Jewish resistance to Zionism and that sort of thing, and that will that will come up when I'm talking about some of these other authors. But I think that right now positing Jewish people as victims and centering anti-Semitism really plays into a lot of the Zionist and Israeli rhetoric surrounding Israel being the only safe haven for Jews or whatever in the world, which is that's not a good thing. I think that the world should be safe for Jews everywhere. I think that anti-Semitism is a global issue that needs to be tackled and can only be reified through Israel's aggression, because people who associate Israel with Judaism entirely because Israel posits itself as as self-representative of Judaism, when we know that's just not true. But when they're demolishing entire neighborhoods and then painting the Star of David on, tagging it on houses that they've just displaced people from, obviously there's no, you can't untie these things. And so the weaponization of anti-Semitism against Palestinians and against people who support Palestinian liberation, it's just a talking point that isn't even worth engaging with. So the fact that when people highlight anti-Semitism without speaking about the genocide that's happening in Gaza right now, it to me, it is Zionist apologia, and it is Zionism, because nothing you say exists in a political vacuum, especially when you're addressing something as politically cogent as anti-Semitism. And so basically all that to say that I will no longer be supporting the work of Sarah Blake. She sent me the arc of her novel Clean Air when it was coming out like a year or two ago, and I read Nama, which is a sort of a biblical retelling of the Noah and Ark story. And I just noticed that based off of her social media presence on Instagram, it was very clear to me that she was a Zionist, along the lines of what I was describing in terms of centering sort of the rhetoric of Jewish pain and the idea of that, and the threat of like rising anti-Semitism and the idea of being pro-Palestine being inherently anti-Semitic, really leaning to that idea. And I'm just very uncomfortable with that. I don't think that's acceptable or okay, especially when thousands of people, tens of thousands of people are being massacred by Israel in the name of Zionism at this, like, in the past months. We're in the 4th month of this aggression, and nearly 5th by the time this video comes up. To not vocally support a ceasefire as a writer and as someone who engages in the literary world when your colleagues, fellow writers, are being murdered is so unconscionable to me that it's making me look at a lot of these writers in a really different way. Like, how can you not condemn, I guess, really vocally and consistently the bombing of children, the dismemberment of kids, and the use of like white phosphorus gas, all these war crimes that are being committed in front of our very eyes for the sake of like liberal complacency? Sorry, there's like a bus. Besides Taylor Jenkins Reid and Sarah Blake being very obviously Zionist and Zionist sympathizers, which just means you're a Zionist. Looking at Minjin Lee's posts, she's pretty active on Twitter as of late, and I kind of scrolled back and not seeing anything about Palestine or anything. That makes me uncomfortable, especially when like a lot of her work has to do with colonization and the colonial occupation of Korea, which really mimics and provides a historical framework for what's happening in Gaza and with Palestine right now. And especially when it seems like, based off of her page, she's really speaking about, like journalists and the freedom of speech in that regard. When journalists are being massacred, like more journalists have been murdered by Israel in the past like few months than in any other conflict of the past like 30 years, I think, like combined, some crazy statistic like that. It makes me look at this author in a different way. And same for Celeste Ng. I word searched on her Twitter Palestine, 0 results. Word search on her Twitter Israel, a few results. And in 2016 she replied to a tweet that was talking about her book getting translated into Hebrew and distributed in Israel. And okay, so the cultural boycott of Israel is something that Palestinians and the organizers of the Boycott, Divest, Sanction movement against Israeli occupation has really made like incredible work towards, by not legitimizing the state of Israel by, increasing economic trade, as well as asking performers not to tour there, asking artists to not put their work out there to be consumed in Israel. The cultural boycott and the academic boycott of Israel is like something really important for people to follow, and you just have no principles and no sense of humanity if you don't do that. And that speaks directly to Sally Rooney and her work. I think it was maybe a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago, where she publicly stated that she does not want her books to be circulated or sold in Israel or published in Israel. Like, she does not want this shit to be produced and published in Israel because of cultural boycott, because of the economic boycott, because she is fervently pro-Palestine as an Irish writer. And I've always respected her for her politics, and in this regard it stands true, and I think she put out a statement that was like, of course I would love for my work to be translated to Hebrew, but I cannot condone, I cannot say yes to this, my books being sold and my books being published in Israel by Israeli publishers. It's in Israeli distributors. So it's like, see, it's an example of how I'm trying to provide these counterexamples of anti-Zionist or vocally pro-Palestine authors to counteract the silence and the tacit Zionism or the active Zionism in the little details and in the things that are posted and not posted by other authors, by indicating that, like, it's not an aberrational thing to do. I think it is the bare minimum of what you should be doing under these circumstances, especially if you're active on social media, which the authors that I'm pointing out are, like Celeste Ng and Minjin Lee. There is no way that you aren't seeing the atrocities that are being committed right now. And the fact that you can't use your own words to speak on this and condemn it because of what? You're afraid that someone's going to, but what about Hamas you? Like, it's or, you know, threaten your writing career. It's so, it really makes me sick. I don't fuck with that, okay? You can't even, like, be like, oh, I read this Palestinian author's book and I really liked it. Like, you can't even do the bare minimum of that. That is crazy to me. Anyway, but to counteract, along with my example of Sally Rooney, and this is, again, I'm talking about non-Palestinian writers, because I'm going to have a video where I do talk about all Palestinian writers and Palestinian books published by Palestinian writers that I've read and enjoyed, and do a review of all of them and recommend all of them to you. But right now, I just want to speak about, like, how sort of allies, I guess, who are writers and authors, have been using their platforms or talking about it in a way that does not make me feel morally challenged and uncomfortable in, like, supporting their work, you know? I also felt this way about when I was looking at Brandon Taylor's page on Instagram. I don't know whether he said anything or posted anything on his Instagram in, like, October or November or anything, but I don't know. I just think that the silence is not, from the literary community, I don't fuck with it. When your work deals with issues of race and class, colonialism, the history of it, identity, feminism, justice, in any way, which a lot of all work does, ultimately, all writing does, why the silence? You're a writer. Use your words. You can articulate yourself in a way that doesn't implicate you to any accusations of anti-Semitism. I don't know. I think I'm also blessed because I've always been surrounded by a community of Jewish people who are anti-Zionist and anti-racist and take it seriously, in opposition to their immediate family and communities who are overwhelmingly Zionist, especially in America, like a lot of Jewish institutions are. I actually participated in a year-long program when I was in high school that was about social justice from the African American and the Jewish perspective, based in St. Louis, even though I'm obviously neither of those things. But it's based in St. Louis because St. Louis has this is where I'm from, St. Louis is where I'm from, this is where I am right now. St. Louis has a really rich history of Jewish people living here and Black people living here under obviously different but parallel economic circumstances, and the relationship that these different groups have had with each other. And anyways, so I've been in a lot of sort of Jewish cultural spaces and institutions, and it's just so unfortunate to see anti-Zionism be so closely associated with anti-Semitism when my friends have never thought of me as anti-Semitic for my views on Palestine, and they, holding similar views, obviously are not, as Jews themselves. Anyway, basically, that kind of leads me to an author who ended up on my favorite books of the year list, Jenny Fran Davis. She, I believe, is a Jewish writer, and she was posting on her Instagram stories, like, pretty recently about the Rabbis for Ceasefire action that was happening in New York. Like, just things like that. I don't know. It's very easy, I feel like. But then for non-Jewish writers who aren't Palestinian, I also wanted to shout out Taylor K. Mahia, because this author has been very vocal on Instagram about their support of Palestine since October and has been regularly posting about it since then, and calling on other members of the literature community, of people who write in their same genre of like fantasy and YA, and whose works inevitably deal with themes of like dystopia and war and imperialism, why they have not spoken about Palestine. I mean, I think when I was reading these books, and I actually did a political analysis breakdown of this book, Taylor K. Mejia so generously and kindly reached out to me because of that video. Even when I was reading these books, I was thinking about how much of the fantasy world built here parallels the circumstances of Palestine and occupation, and how you can draw those parallels to so many fantasy books. Like, people have been talking a lot about the parallels between the Hunger Games, I guess, and Palestine right now. I don't know. I think like the reality is that as writers and also as people who engage with like the literary community, I just feel that you have a responsibility to Palestinians as a human being, Palestinian writers as a writer or someone or a reader, and also Palestinian book influencers, Muslim and Arab influencers and bookish people who have been speaking out about the way that this genocide is affecting them personally, the way that silence surrounding it is deeply harmful and it just shattering. I also checked out Alyssa Nutting's Instagram story like just now before sitting down to film, and I saw that she also reposted statistics about Palestine and was talking about the Israeli genocide of Gaza right now. And Alyssa Nutting's work is really absurdist and just kind of silly and funny in a lot of ways, but also really serious. And she also is a showrunner for a TV show. Alyssa Nutting as a writer like has something to lose, I guess, as does everyone. I mean, as does most people. But I think like her continual and present vocal support of Palestine during this situation of like extreme terror for Palestinians is something that is like, this is the bare minimum. Palestinians have been asking us to speak up and out against this genocide, to call for a ceasefire, and to witness and share their suffering in order to move to that point of a ceasefire and an end of the occupation. And so people not doing the bare minimum of like posting on social media and using their voices and their platforms, especially as major writers, it's not okay. I condemn that. I think that that's terrible. The fact that there's, I think, also this additional pressure on Palestinian writers right now and Palestinian members of the literary community and the online bookish community to pressure people to be more vocal, to ask people to, or to have to engage with accusations of anti-Semitism when they're just talking about Israeli occupation and a hope for free Palestine, for a ceasefire. It's ridiculous, and part of us joining our voices in a sort of vocal support and solidarity of Palestinians is so that there's not as much of a target on people who do speak out, because when everyone is speaking out, then each person, not everyone can just like get fired or whatever, or blacklisted because of their views and their statements for alleged like anti-Semitism or whatever. So yeah, I mean, another person who's been very vocal about her support of Palestine is Michelle T, which totally matches up with her politics in general, I think, as expressed through her writing. And Michelle T is one of my favorite authors of all time at this point, and I really respect her for using her platform and for sticking to her guns on this issue, and for speaking out, for standing in solidarity with Palestinians and believing in Palestinian liberation. I just think that it's so the bare minimum, and so many authors are failing, and so many authors are actually going in the other direction in terms of being Zionist sympathizers or Zionists themselves. And even right now, there is the marketing boycott happening. I remember seeing the videos when they came out online on like TikTok like a month or two ago, but the specific marketing boycott surrounding, I think it's Wednesday books it's the St. Martin's Press marketing boycott. There's a card and I'll link that in the description, but basically St. Martin's Press has been silent about the Islamophobia and racism from one of their employees who deals with the marketing and influencer relations to, you know, bookish influencers. And so if you're a bookish person online, and I need to remember this too, because I need to remember to check to make sure that the books that I'm talking about on here are not St. Martin's Press books, then just make sure to not include them in your videos or in talking about them online, posting about it on Instagram and whatnot, just to, you know, stay in line with the boycott. But yeah, anyways, so these are just some of the thoughts I have, I guess, on what's happening right now. The fundraising goal for my friend's family to leave Gaza, actually, we met that goal and they're safe now, thank God. That same friend is raising money for one of their friends who is trying to help their family flee Sudan right now amidst the military violence occurring there. So I have the information for that fundraiser here, and I will link that GoFundMe in the description as well. But these are just some things that I wanted to talk about because people have been commenting on my videos and stuff talking about how, I don't know, they're like thanking me for speaking up about Palestine and stuff. But to me, it's kind of like that, again, that's the bare minimum, and that's what everyone should be doing. And it's just sad to see that people are not. I mean, I think some influencers that come to mind in terms of people who have spoken out about Palestine are Kayla from Books and Lala. I've seen her post and talk about it in her videos. I think Carrie Can Read, she has posted and talked about it as well. And of course, my name is Marinez. She is someone who was talking about the St. Martin's Press boycott in one of her most recent videos, talking about her favorites of the year. So, yeah, I hope everyone, you know, tries to be better, I guess, but I don't know if that's gonna happen or if that's possible. And if you are hoping to like educate yourself more about Israeli occupation of Palestine, I would really recommend you watching the documentary Gaza Fights for Freedom. It's available for free on YouTube. I will also link it down below. It is a really eye-opening documentary in terms of looking at the 2019 Great March of Return, which was a peaceful protest of Palestinians just walking to the border to return to claim their UN established right of return to their homes that were taken over by settlers and enforced by the settler government, of course, and the military rule and violence that maintains these borders and checkpoints, but were just massacred. Medics, journalists, unarmed people. This documentary follows that and also looks at the history of Israeli occupation of Palestine and Gaza and what that has meant. And you can see how decades of oppression and terrorism from Israel has led up to this point, has led up to this ongoing aggression, this military bombardment and genocide with the goal of absolute annihilation in order to make a land grab. It's horrific. It would have been wrong for me to not talk about it because it's on my mind so much and has been since I learned about the Palestinian struggle. I have supported Palestine and been anti-Zionist. I mean, actually, my laptop, I have my Free Palestine laptop sticker that I got last summer at Pride. My other St. Louis, Save Trans Lives stickers on my laptop and stuff, but I don't know. It's just like, let's show some humanity, solidarity, just a smidgen of it, maybe. That's, I guess, my call to the bookish community or whatever. Yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for watching. All I can hope for and all we can work towards is that there will be a ceasefire and there will be active work towards the end of Israeli occupation, but that cannot happen unless people get their act together and put pressure on their government and our Zionist institutions that buttress so many of the things that we do in our lives and our government that's so tied up with it. And then, of course, the publishing industry that is tacitly or openly Zionist, with full of people who supposedly care about social issues and the plight of people who suffer, yet can only do so in the aftermath, I suppose, can only do so within a mealy-mouthed, milquetoast liberal apparatus. It's not surprising, but it is really terrible. Okay, bye. I'll see you in my next video.